AITA for causing tension in my family over a dispute that I didn't think I'd ever be part of. I, 36F, come from a fairly close-knit family, though we have our quirks. My parents divorced when I was 14, and my older brother, 40M, and I grew up mostly with my mom. My dad remarried shortly after the divorce, and while he was never overtly hostile toward my brother and me, his new wife, Linda, made the dynamic a little complicated. She was always nice enough in front of us, but tended to overstep boundaries behind the scenes, which created subtle tension that I mostly ignored as a teenager. Fast forward to last year, my father passed away unexpectedly. His will wasn't very complicated in terms of assets, but there was one clause that completely blindsided me. My dad left the house, which had been in the family for generations, to my brother and me equally, but he left a substantial sum of money to Linda with a stipulation that she could use it for her lifetime, after which it would revert to my brother and me. Essentially, he wanted to make sure she was taken care of, but that the inheritance would eventually return to his bloodline. Here's where things got messy. Linda immediately contacted a lawyer and challenged the will. She claimed my father was coerced by me and my brother to leave her with only a lifetime interest in the money, and that the will didn't reflect what my father truly wanted. She said that he wanted her to inherit everything and that my brother and I were manipulating him. Naturally, my brother and I were shocked. We had no idea she was unhappy with the terms until the lawyer sent us a notice of her intention to contest the will. I tried to reach out to Linda personally, thinking maybe we could avoid a legal battle. I told her I understood she wanted security and that we respected that, but we were following my father's explicit wishes. She accused me of being cold and ungrateful, saying that I was only protecting my inheritance and had no concern for her well-being. My brother sided with me, but he was quieter and less confrontational, preferring to let me handle the communication. As the months dragged on, tension grew. My extended family started picking sides. My aunt and uncle, who had always been neutral, made comments that I was forcing Linda out of her home and that I was greedy. My cousins told me privately that I was being selfish, even though they hadn't read the will themselves. My brother, frustrated with the constant bickering, suggested we just settle financially to avoid conflict, but I felt like that would completely disregard my father's intentions. Things came to a head at the first mediation meeting. Linda's lawyer argued aggressively, questioning our character, claiming that my father had been isolated in his later years and that we had undue influence. I answered honestly, explaining that my father was a very independent man and that he had always been clear about how he wanted his estate handled. At one point, Linda's lawyer directly accused me of coercing my father in the final months of his life, which felt absurd and insulting. I didn't yell, but I firmly denied it and provided documentation showing that my father had written multiple drafts and discussed the terms with his financial advisor. After the meeting, my cousins came up to me and told me I was too harsh and that I should have been nicer to Linda. My aunt sent me a passive-aggressive text about being respectful of elders, and my uncle commented that I was breaking up the family over money. It started to feel like no matter what I did, I was being painted as the villain. The legal battle stretched on for months. During that time, I tried to maintain civility. I sent Linda flowers on her birthday and offered to help her move to a new place when she hinted she might want to leave the house. She accepted the gestures but continued her legal challenge. Every email, every interaction seemed to be scrutinized by extended family members. I found myself constantly explaining my actions, defending my intentions, and feeling guilty even though I was trying to honor my father's wishes. Finally, a court date was set. The judge reviewed all the documentation, including medical records and witness statements. It became clear that my father's will was valid and reflected his genuine intentions. The judge dismissed Linda's claim, stating that there was no evidence of coercion or undue influence. Linda was awarded only the lifetime interest as specified in the will, nothing more. After the ruling, my brother and I hoped the tension would ease, but instead, my family's criticism intensified. My aunt refused to attend the memorial service, claiming she didn't want to celebrate a family that treats widows poorly. My cousins openly criticized me on social media, framing me as greedy and manipulative. My brother tried to mediate, but even he seemed exhausted by the constant judgment. I reached a breaking point and decided to block certain family members and limit contact, focusing only on immediate family who understood the situation. The fallout has been extensive. Linda has moved out and seems to be slowly coming to terms with the outcome, though I suspect we will always have a tense relationship. My brother is supportive, but tired of the drama. I am constantly asked if I feel guilty, but I genuinely feel I did what was right according to my father's wishes. Still, part of me wonders if I handled things too bluntly, or if there was a more graceful way to approach it. So, AITA for sticking to my father's will and defending it against my stepmother's challenge, despite the resulting family tension? Or is my family being unfairly harsh in judging me for doing exactly what my father wanted? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my best friend move in after she lost her apartment. I, 33F, have been friends with Claire, 32F, since college. We were roommates for a year and have always been close, even after moving into our own lives and apartments. I have a steady job in marketing a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent in a mid-sized city and a quiet routine that I rely on for my mental health. Claire, on the other hand, has always been a little impulsive, financially inconsistent, and often relies on others for support during crises. Despite this, I have always tried to help her when possible, whether by lending small amounts of money or giving advice. About a month ago, Claire called me in a panic. She had lost her apartment because her landlord sold the building, and she had also recently been let go from her job at a boutique agency. She said she had nowhere to go and asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured out her next steps. Initially, I felt sympathetic because I know losing a job and housing at the same time is extremely stressful. However, I also immediately realized that letting her move in would create significant challenges. My apartment is small, the spare bedroom is actually my office, and I value my routines and quiet space. Adding another adult to my household, even temporarily, would disrupt both my personal life and work-from-home setup. I told Claire I could not let her move in permanently, but I offered alternatives. I suggested helping her find a short-term rental, contributing to a temporary Airbnb, assisting with job applications, and helping her search for affordable apartments. I also offered a small financial contribution for essentials while she looked for housing. I emphasized that I wanted to support her, but that living together under these circumstances was not an option for me. Claire did not take this well. She insisted that moving in with me was the only practical solution, claimed it would be temporary, and suggested that friends and other family were either unavailable or unwilling to help. She said that a real friend would do whatever it takes to help someone in need and implied that I was being selfish. I tried to explain that my refusal was not about lacking care or compassion, but about practical limitations and maintaining boundaries that protect both of us. I reminded her that I had already offered multiple ways to help that didn't involve living together. Over the next week, Claire's pressure increased. She called multiple times a day, sometimes leaving long, emotional voicemails detailing how difficult her situation was and implying that I could solve the problem by letting her stay with me. She also guilt-tripped me by bringing up our history and the fact that we had shared living spaces in college, suggesting that I owed her the same consideration now. I stayed firm but found myself anxious and stressed every time my phone rang. The situation also began affecting my work and daily life. I worried constantly about what it would be like if I agreed to let her move in. I knew that even if she promised it would be temporary, it could easily extend indefinitely because she had no stable income, no savings, and no other guaranteed options. I wanted to help her get back on her feet, but I also needed to protect my own mental health, routines, and space. Mutual friends and family got involved, some saying I should just make the sacrifice and let her move in, while others agreed that my concerns were reasonable and that having her live with me could cause tension and stress for both of us. The mixed opinions made me feel guilty, even though I knew that setting boundaries was responsible. Eventually, Claire found a friend willing to host her temporarily, but she continues to contact me frequently, venting about her difficulties and implying that I could have done more. I still offer emotional support, advice, and help with job applications and housing searches, but she seems dissatisfied with anything that does not involve me opening my home. I feel torn because I want to help Claire and maintain our friendship, but I also need to protect my living situation and mental health. Allowing her to move in would likely lead to stress, tension, and disruption of my routines. I feel that I have tried to compromise by offering alternative forms of support, but she and some friends interpret this as selfishness or lack of compassion. So, AITA for refusing to let my best friend move in after she lost her apartment and job. Even though it has caused tension and guilt, I feel like I am helping her in responsible, sustainable ways without jeopardizing my own stability, but I am unsure if standing firm makes me the villain. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house while she figures things out. I, 34F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a stable job, a house I've been paying off for years, and I live a relatively quiet life. My younger sister, Emma, 28F, has always been more impulsive. She moves from job to job, city to city, and often relies on friends or family for support when things don't go her way. I love her, but living with her or accommodating her unpredictability has always been a boundary I've maintained. Emma recently got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 30M. I've met him a few times, and he seems nice enough, but I don't know him very well. Emma and Mark have been together for just over a year, and things have been moving fast. They recently decided they want to move in together, but Mark's current living situation is complicated. He lives with his parents, and apparently, they're being difficult about him leaving. Emma told me that Mark might need to move in temporarily with me while they sort things out, because he doesn't want to deal with his parents right now. At first, I was caught off guard. I love Emma, but the idea of having her fiancé move in with me, in my personal space, for an undefined period, made me uncomfortable. I have a one-bedroom apartment. My space is my sanctuary. The thought of another adult moving in, even temporarily, was stressful. I politely told Emma that I couldn't have Mark stay with me. I explained that my apartment is small, I work long hours, and I need my personal space to recharge. Emma was shocked and hurt. She said I was being selfish and that family should help each other out in times of need. She argued that it would only be temporary, a few weeks at most, and that I would be doing a good deed. She even brought up that Mark is her fiancé, so it's practically like helping her. I try to be firm but gentle, reiterating that I simply cannot host anyone long-term right now. She then asked if she could stay over while Mark moved in, which made me even more uncomfortable. I value my personal space, and I rarely have overnight guests. Allowing both of them to stay seemed like a huge invasion of my home and my routine. I told her the same thing. I can't accommodate either of them. She left upset, but I thought the conversation was over. A few days later, Emma sent me a long message. She said that Mark's parents are being unreasonable and that he literally has nowhere else to go. She said that if I don't let him stay, they might have to cancel their engagement or even consider breaking up. She also said that she feels like I'm choosing my comfort over family, and that it hurts her to see me being so inflexible. I didn't respond immediately because I needed to think about it. I asked Mark directly if he actually needed a place to stay. He told me that yes, it would be very helpful if he could stay temporarily, but he also said he completely understood if it wasn't possible. I appreciated his honesty and directness, but I still felt strongly that it wouldn't work in my space. I also started to think about the precedent it would set. If I let him stay, would they expect me to accommodate other crises in the future? How would it affect my work schedule, my privacy, my finances? I realized that saying yes would likely create stress and resentment on my end. I finally responded to Emma, saying that while I wish I could help, it's not feasible for me to host Mark or both of them. I offered to help in other ways. I could help them find short-term rentals, lend some money for a deposit, or help them look for temporary accommodations. I explained that I love them and want to support their relationship, but my home simply isn't an option. Emma didn't take it well. She accused me of being cruel, selfish, and not understanding the importance of family. She said that if I loved her, I would help, and that I was putting my comfort above her happiness. She has since been giving me the silent treatment, only sending occasional passive-aggressive texts. I haven't responded because I don't want to escalate the situation. Some family members have weighed in. My parents think I'm being too harsh and should make room for family, while my friends support me, saying that it's reasonable to set boundaries in your own home. My boyfriend says I'm right to protect my space, especially for mental health reasons, but he also warned that this could cause a long-term rift with my sister. I'm now questioning myself. Am I really being selfish for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my house temporarily? I want to help, but I also know my limits. If I had a bigger place or more flexible schedule, I might have said yes, but as it stands, I just can't. I don't want this decision to ruin my relationship with Emma, but I also don't want to compromise my own well-being. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé move into my home temporarily, even though it would help them out. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's fiancé move in with me temporarily, even though she's family now. I, 32M, live in a fairly small one-bedroom apartment in a bustling city. It's not luxurious, but it's my space, and I like it that way. My younger brother, Jake, 28M, recently got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Lila, 27F. We have a pretty normal sibling relationship. I love him, and we get along well, but we've always had different lifestyles. He's more spontaneous and outgoing, while I value my routines and personal space. A few weeks ago, Jay called me in a panic. He and Lila had signed a lease for a new apartment, but during their final walkthrough, they discovered extensive water damage that made the apartment unlivable. The landlord has been dragging their feet on fixing it, and moving to another place would take at least a month. Jake asked if Lila could stay at my place temporarily until the situation resolved. He said it would only be for a couple of weeks, and he stressed that she would be completely respectful of my space. I hesitated immediately. My apartment is small, and I work from home, which means I need a quiet environment. I value my privacy intensely. I told him I wasn't sure it was a good idea, but he was very persuasive, emphasizing that Lila is like family now, and this was a temporary emergency. I asked if he could stay too, thinking at least having both of them would make it more balanced. He said no. Jake wanted to stay with friends in another part of the city, and it was just Lila who really needed a place. I politely declined, explaining that I wasn't comfortable with a stranger living in my apartment, even temporarily. Jake seemed hurt, but said he understood. I assumed that would be the end of it. A few days later, I returned home from work to find Lila sitting on my couch. She smiled and explained that she was in town for a work meeting and thought she'd drop by for a quick stay, assuming I wouldn't mind. I was stunned. I told her firmly that she couldn't stay at my apartment, especially without asking me first. She seemed taken aback and tried to argue that I was being mean and that family should help each other. I repeated my position. It wasn't about being mean. It was about boundaries and my need for personal space. She didn't leave immediately. She insisted that she wouldn't be in the way, that she could sleep on the couch, and that it wouldn't be for long. I held my ground, asking her to call Jake and figure something else out. She finally left, but I could tell she was upset. Later that evening, Jake called. He was angry, saying that I had embarrassed Lila and that I was being selfish. He said she had a legitimate emergency and I was turning my back on family. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal, but he kept insisting that refusing to help her was wrong. I mentioned again that my apartment isn't suitable for hosting someone long-term, and I suggested he look for a short-term sublet or a friend who could accommodate her. He accused me of making excuses. The tension escalated when I went to work the next day. Lila sent me a long text about how she thought I would be family-minded and that I was letting pride get in the way of compassion. She implied that if I didn't help, it would hurt my relationship with Jake. I replied calmly, reiterating that my apartment isn't large enough for guests without infringing on work and personal life, and that she could not stay there. She hasn't responded since, but I can tell from Jake that they're both still upset. To add more context, I've hosted friends in my apartment before, but only for short stays and only when it didn't interfere with my work schedule. I also have a cat who doesn't handle guests well, and Lila is allergic. I mentioned both points when I explained why she couldn't stay, but Jake claims I'm overcomplicating things. I feel like I'm being reasonable, but I can't shake the guilt. Jake keeps bringing up family loyalty and how he's disappointed that I wouldn't help, even if it's inconvenient. I don't want to damage my relationship with either of them, but I also feel strongly that allowing Lila to stay would be a huge disruption and unfair to me. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée stay at my apartment, even temporarily, despite the emergency she's facing. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan our family vacation. I, 32F, come from a moderately close-knit family. We have two younger siblings, my brother, 29M, and my sister, 27F. My sister, Emma, has been engaged to her fiancé, Ryan, 30M, for about a year. For context, Ryan is very controlling and tends to dominate conversations, plans, and group decisions. While my sister is lovely and kind, she often defers to Ryan in almost every situation, which has caused tension in the past during family gatherings. Our family has a tradition of taking a week-long vacation together every summer. This usually rotates who chooses the destination, but ultimately, it's meant to be a collaborative effort. My mom, 58F, and Dad, 60M, are happy to let us adults handle the arrangements, and they typically go along with the family consensus. This year, it was Emma's turn to pick the destination, and she immediately deferred to Ryan, saying he's been researching some really cool places, so let him plan it. Initially, I didn't say much. I wanted to see what he came up with before making any judgment. Ryan presented a plan that included an extremely strict itinerary. We would have scheduled activities from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., including guided tours, boat rides, wine tastings, and mandatory group dinners at specific restaurants he had picked. He also allocated individual budgets for spending, suggesting that if anyone wanted to deviate, they would have to notify him in advance. I voiced my concerns politely, saying, I think family vacations work best when there's some flexibility. This feels a little rigid and controlling. Ryan dismissed my concerns, stating, I just want everyone to have a structured, efficient experience. Spontaneity leads to chaos. Emma nodded along, saying she thought it was a great plan and that I was just being dramatic. I tried to compromise, suggesting that we could schedule a few planned activities, but leave free time for people to explore on their own or rest. Ryan outright rejected the idea. He said, if you can't follow the plan, maybe you should skip this trip. That rubbed me the wrong way because family vacations aren't supposed to feel like military exercises. I decided to bring it up with my parents. My mom expressed some concern about the rigidity, and my dad quietly agreed with me. They suggested I talk to Emma directly, which I did. I told Emma that I wasn't comfortable letting Ryan plan the entire vacation and that I thought it would be better if we made decisions together as a family. Emma looked upset and said, You're overreacting. Ryan just wants to make sure everything goes smoothly. The next day, I approached Ryan privately and said, I'm not comfortable with the way you've planned everything. I want this vacation to be fun and relaxing, not stressful. I like us to collaborate or at least leave some time unplanned. Ryan became defensive and said, You're trying to undermine me. This is my fiancé's turn to choose, and I'm just helping her. If you can't handle that, maybe you should sit this one out. At this point, I got frustrated. I told him, This isn't just your vacation, it's our family vacation. You don't get to dictate everything for everyone. He raised his voice and said, Fine, then I guess you can stay home if you're going to cause problems. I talked to my parents and siblings, explaining the situation. My brother agreed that Ryan's plan was overly controlling, and my sister initially seemed conflicted but eventually sided with Ryan, saying, I want to have a smooth vacation, and his plan ensures that. I decided to take a stand. I sent Emma and Ryan a message saying, I will not participate in a vacation where one person dictates every moment. I'm happy to discuss ideas and collaborate, but if the plan stays as it is, I won't be going. Emma responded emotionally. accusing me of trying to ruin the family trip and saying, "You're being selfish and refusing to compromise." Ryan added that my attitude was disruptive and childish. The situation escalated over the next few days. Our family chat was flooded with arguments. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting that we all meet in person and discuss compromises. Ryan refused to budge on his plan, and Emma was visibly stressed, torn between her family and her fiancé. I remained firm in my position. Ultimately, I decided to book my own trip elsewhere. I told my family I would be on a different vacation and that I hoped they would enjoy theirs. On the day of the trip, my parents expressed disappointment. My sister didn't speak to me, and Ryan posted on social media about how everyone is enjoying the perfectly organized trip without me. Since returning, there's been tension. My parents think I was right to stand up for myself, but wish I had compromised more. My sister hasn't spoken much to me, and Ryan has made passive-aggressive comments when we're all together. I feel guilty for missing the family vacation, but at the same time, I feel I made the right choice because I couldn't tolerate being micromanaged and having my input completely dismissed. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé plan our family vacation and choosing to skip it rather than participate under his strict rules. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment and job. I, 36F, have a cousin, Vanessa, 33F, who has always been a bit impulsive and financially inconsistent. Growing up, we were close, and over the years we've maintained a strong relationship, though our lifestyles are very different. I have a stable life with a full-time job, a 2-bedroom apartment that I rent in the city, and a well-established routine. Vanessa has never had the same level of financial stability. She frequently relies on others when things go wrong, despite repeated discussions about budgeting and planning ahead. About a month ago, Vanessa called me in tears. She had just lost her job at a small local firm, and shortly after that, her apartment lease ended because she could not pay rent. She told me she had nowhere to go and asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured out her next steps. At first, I felt sympathetic because losing a job and housing at the same time is extremely stressful. However, I also realized immediately that having her move in would create significant logistical and personal challenges. My apartment is modest and 2-bedroom, with one room functioning as my home office. Adding another adult would disrupt my work, daily routines, and personal space. I also have a cat, and I was concerned about how she would handle living with pets and maintaining cleanliness in shared spaces. I told Vanessa that I could not have her move in permanently, but offered alternative ways to help. I suggested helping her find a short-term rental or sublet, contributing to a temporary Airbnb, assisting with job applications, and helping her budget for a new place. I also offered a modest sum to help with moving costs or deposits. I made it clear that I wanted to support her, but that living together under these circumstances was not an option for me. Vanessa reacted poorly. She insisted that moving in with me was the only solution, claiming it would only be temporary, just a few weeks until she got back on her feet. She argued that friends and family were either unavailable or unwilling to help her. It implied that I was being selfish and unsupportive. She also guilt-tripped me by saying that I had lived with her before during college and therefore owed her the same consideration now. I tried to calmly explain that my refusal was not about lack of compassion, but about maintaining boundaries that protect both of us. I emphasized that living together under these circumstances could create tension, disrupt my routines, and negatively affect my mental health. Over the following week, Vanessa increased the pressure. She called multiple times a day, sometimes leaving long voicemails detailing her hardships and implying that I could make her life easier by letting her move in. She also began messaging me late at night, sending texts about how stressful her situation was and expressing disappointment that I would not help like a family member should. I repeatedly reminded her of the alternative support I had offered, but she dismissed them as insufficient. The situation started affecting my daily life and mental health. I was anxious whenever my phone rang, dreading the next message or call from her. I worried that even if she promised a short stay, it could extend indefinitely because she had no stable income, limited savings, and no other guaranteed options. I wanted to help her get back on her feet, but I also knew that compromising my personal space, routines, and mental health could create resentment and tension. Some family members weighed in as well. A few said I should just let her move in because family helps each other in times of crisis, while others agreed that my concerns were valid and that having her move in could create long-term problems. This mixed feedback made me feel guilty, even though I knew that setting boundaries was necessary and reasonable. Eventually, Vanessa found a friend willing to host her temporarily, but she continues to reach out frequently, venting about her difficulties and implying that I could have done more. I continue to offer emotional support, help with job applications, and limited financial guidance, but she seems dissatisfied with anything that does not involve living with me. I am torn because I want to maintain our relationship and support her, but I also need to protect my home, routines, and mental health. Allowing her to move in would create stress, potential conflict, and disruption to my daily life that I am not willing to take on. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment and job. Even though it has caused tension and guilt, I feel like I am helping her in responsible and sustainable ways without jeopardizing my own stability. But she and some family members interpret my actions as selfish or uncaring. I want to support her through this difficult time while maintaining boundaries that protect my household and mental health. But I am unsure if standing firm makes me the villain. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly humiliated me. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but as we got older, our personalities clashed more and more. I'm introverted and value my privacy, while Emily is outgoing, dramatic, and thrives on attention. Our parents have always tried to keep the peace, but sometimes it feels like Emily has a way of turning any situation into a performance, and I usually end up being the butt of the joke. A little context: I have struggled with social anxiety for most of my adult life. I can handle large groups in small doses, but big, loud events are genuinely stressful for me. Emily knows this. She's known it for years. Yet, she often forgets or dismisses it, especially when it conflicts with her plans. Recently, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 34M. I was happy for her and even helped with some of the wedding planning early on, offering advice on vendors and venues. I was involved, but I always made it clear that I might not attend all pre-wedding events because of my anxiety and work commitments. Most of her friends and family are also very outgoing, and I've been honest about feeling overwhelmed in such environments. The problem started at her bridal shower. Emily invited nearly 40 people, most of whom I didn't know well. She asked me to give a toast. I politely declined, explaining that public speaking is very difficult for me and that it would cause me significant stress. She said, "Come on, it's just a few minutes, you'll survive," and I tried to insist. Eventually, she guilted me into agreeing, promising it would be short and that she'd stand next to me. The day of the shower arrived, and it was chaos. People were mingling loudly, music was blasting, and everyone was taking photos constantly. When it was my turn to speak, Emily handed me the microphone, and I froze. I stumbled over my words, my voice cracked, and I could feel all eyes on me. Instead of helping me, Emily laughed. Not a gentle laugh. She made a pointed, loud comment like, "Wow, I didn't know nerves could sound so bad." A few guests chuckled. I was mortified. I mumbled through the rest of the toast, embarrassed, and spent the remainder of the evening feeling anxious and humiliated. Afterward, I told Emily how hurt I was. I explained that I felt betrayed because she knew public speaking is a trigger for me, and her laughter made it worse. She dismissed my feelings, saying I was being too sensitive and that everyone was just having fun. She insisted I was overreacting and that I should learn to take a joke. I tried to reason with her, but she refused to apologize and even posted a video of my failed toast on her Instagram story without my consent. Many family members and friends commented, some joking about my anxiety, which made me feel even worse. Fast forward a few months, the wedding is approaching. Emily has asked me multiple times if I'll be in the bridal party. I told her that I appreciate the offer, but I cannot commit because large, high-pressure events make me extremely anxious, and after the shower incident, I'm not comfortable being in such a spotlight. She got upset and accused me of being selfish and disruptive. She said, "It's my wedding. How can you not be there for me? You're ruining this for everyone." Last week, she sent me a group text including our parents, my brother, and Mark, stating that if I don't participate in the wedding party, I should not attend the wedding at all. She framed it as if my absence would be a personal attack and called it disappointing and hurtful beyond words. She also said that my refusal would show everyone where my loyalties lie. I was shocked. I tried to call her to explain my perspective calmly, but she hung up. I sent a private message outlining my feelings, including how the bridal shower incident traumatized me, how I've always supported her in less public ways, and that attending the wedding under these conditions would cause me severe anxiety. I offered to celebrate privately with her after the wedding if she wanted. She responded with another group message, calling me dramatic and overreacting, and reiterated that if I didn't participate fully, I shouldn't come at all. I'm devastated because I love my sister, but I also feel like my mental health and boundaries are being ignored. I don't want to be publicly humiliated again, and I don't want to attend a wedding under duress. I've decided not to attend the wedding. I sent a message to my parents explaining my choice and my reasons. They are upset, but seem to understand my perspective, although they are worried about family tension. Now, I'm getting mixed reactions from extended family. Some think I'm making a reasonable decision to protect my mental health. Others say I'm selfish and should just put aside anxiety for one day to support my sister. Emily has unfollowed me on social media and refuses to speak to me directly. I feel hurt, guilty, and isolated. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly humiliated me and continues to dismiss my mental health needs. I feel like setting boundaries is necessary, but I also feel like I'm letting my family down. AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate how I raise my kids. My sister, Claire, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the perfect child, smart, organized, and always doing everything by the book. I, on the other hand, have always been more free-spirited and a little messy, which has caused tension between us over the years. I used to let it slide because she's my sister, but recently, things have escalated. I have 2 kids, a 7-year-old daughter, Emma, and a 5-year-old son, Lucas. My parenting style is more relaxed than Claire's. I don't mind if the kids stay up a little late on weekends. I let them experiment with different hobbies without pressuring them to excel, and I'm not strict about screen time as long as it's balanced. I know some people might consider my approach lax, but my kids are happy, healthy, and well-behaved overall. Claire, on the other hand, has 1 child, a 6-year-old son, Oliver. She's extremely regimented. Early bedtimes, no screen time on weekdays, constant monitoring of schoolwork, and very structured activities. She has always believed that this is the only right way to raise a child. Our differences have never really been a huge issue until she started making comments about my parenting in front of my kids. It started subtly, like mentioning to Emma that she should be more disciplined or telling Lucas that he should listen more to his mom. At first, I brushed it off as harmless advice, but over time it got more direct. Last month, Claire came over for dinner with Oliver, and the conversation turned to homework. Emma was struggling a little with a math assignment, and Claire said, "You should really make her redo it until it's perfect." That's how kids learn. I told her I prefer to help her understand and move on rather than stress over perfection. Claire rolled her eyes and muttered something about me being too soft. The tipping point happened last week. I had signed my kids up for a local art camp during spring break. Claire found out and immediately started messaging me about it. She said, "I can't believe you're sending them to a camp that doesn't even have a strict curriculum. They're going to waste their time. You're basically telling them it's okay to be lazy." I tried to explain that the camp focuses on creativity and exploration, which I think is important for their development, but she kept pushing, saying that I was failing as a parent by letting them have fun instead of being productive. I decided to ignore her advice, but the situation escalated when she started posting about it on social media, tagging me, and writing things like, "Some parents let their kids do whatever and wonder why they can't keep up in school." That's when I snapped. I called her and told her to stop interfering in my parenting and to keep her opinions to herself unless I asked for them. She immediately got defensive and said I was overreacting, that she was just trying to help, and that I was being too sensitive. A few days later, Claire came over with Oliver, and the tension was palpable. During lunch, she loudly criticized how I had served snacks, saying Emma and Lucas needed healthier options. When I defended myself, she got more aggressive, lecturing me about nutrition, screen time, and bedtimes. I finally told her that if she couldn't respect my decisions as a parent, she was no longer welcome in my home. She left in a huff and has since been posting passive-aggressive comments online about parents who think freedom is better than guidance. Now, our family is divided. My parents think I overreacted and that I should just let Claire have her opinions. My partner supports me fully, saying that Claire's behavior was intrusive and inappropriate. Some friends have suggested I try a more diplomatic approach, but I feel like I've already tried that multiple times. I don't want my kids growing up feeling like their choices or their mother's decisions are constantly being undermined. The hardest part is that I do care about my sister, and I want a relationship with her, but it feels impossible when she treats my parenting as a competition. I'm starting to wonder if I'm being unreasonable for drawing a hard boundary, even though I feel like my kids' well-being and my autonomy as a parent are at stake. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister dictate how I raise my children, and for telling her she isn't welcome in my home until she respects my parenting choices. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay in my house indefinitely, even though she claimed she had nowhere else to go. I, 34F, have always been independent. I bought my own house 5 years ago, worked hard to pay it off, and take pride in having a stable life. I live alone, work long hours, and enjoy having my own space. My cousin, Natalie, 32F, has had a very different experience. She struggled financially for most of her adult life, bouncing between temporary jobs and short-term apartments, often relying on friends and family for support. I've helped her in the past, loaning small amounts of money, letting her stay for a week or two during tough times. But I've always maintained clear boundaries because I know she has a tendency to overstay her welcome. About 6 months ago, Natalie called me in a panic. She had just been evicted from her apartment due to unpaid rent and said she had nowhere to go. I felt sympathetic and offered her to stay for a week while she figured out her next steps. She moved in, and at first everything seemed fine. She was quiet, helped with minor chores, and kept to herself. But by the end of the first week, she started leaving dirty dishes in the sink, piling laundry on my couch, and inviting friends over without asking. I reminded her politely about house rules and suggested she try to keep the space tidy, but she seemed to brush it off. Within a month, I noticed a pattern that made me uneasy. Natalie rarely applied for jobs consistently, often missed deadlines, and would ask me for extra money to cover her bills. She began implying that she might stay longer than planned because she didn't have anywhere else safe to go, and suggested that my house could be a permanent solution. I felt trapped because I had already let her stay longer than intended, but I didn't want to be heartless. I tried to help her find affordable apartments, shared listings, and offered to co-sign a lease if she could prove she could handle the rent. But she kept coming up with excuses. I need more time, nothing is available in my price range, and I can't move yet because of my job. Her attitude started to shift. She became demanding, criticizing how I managed my home, commenting on how I decorated, and insisting that I should make more space for her belongings. She also started staying out late and coming home with friends, often leaving them in my living room while I was asleep. I confronted her about boundaries, explaining that while I wanted to help, I could not compromise my personal space and peace of mind. She responded angrily, claiming that I was being selfish and didn't care about her well-being. The breaking point came when she directly asked me to let her stay indefinitely, saying that moving out would be too stressful and that she deserved a stable home after everything she's been through. I explained calmly that my house was not a long-term solution and that I had already been generous beyond reason. I reminded her that independence was important and that she needed to take responsibility for her life. She accused me of being cruel, heartless, and family unfriendly. She said if I refused, she might cut ties with me entirely and that my refusal would be remembered as a betrayal. I tried to involve our family to mediate. My parents and other cousins were sympathetic to her, saying that I should be more generous and that family should help each other unconditionally. I explained that I had already been generous, providing temporary shelter, advice, and financial help, and that her behavior showed a pattern of dependency. Some family members sided with me, but others implied I was being cold and unreasonable. The family dynamics became tense, and I felt judged for setting reasonable boundaries. Over the past 3 months, I have enforced stricter limits. I gave her a firm move-out deadline, stopped lending her money, and began locking my private areas. She has reacted by sending passive-aggressive texts, making claims about me being selfish, and framing our relationship as a test of loyalty. Mutual friends have started asking me questions, and I feel embarrassed and stressed. I worry that this conflict will permanently damage our relationship and that I am being portrayed as cruel. I've reflected a lot on my actions. I feel justified in setting boundaries, especially regarding my own home and finances. I also understand that she's in a tough situation, and I want to support her in sustainable ways, like helping with budgeting, job applications, or temporary housing programs. But she refuses to accept any solution that doesn't involve living in my house permanently. I've tried compromising, but nothing seems to satisfy her, and I feel exhausted and manipulated. I love my cousin and want her to succeed, but I cannot sacrifice my own stability and well-being. I fear that giving in would not only create resentment, but also enable a pattern of dependency that would be harmful in the long run. At the same time, I feel guilty for refusing and wonder if I should have done more, but I also know that my decisions are reasonable. AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay in my house indefinitely and insisting that she take responsibility for her own life, even though she claims she has nowhere else to go. AITA for refusing to let my husband handle our daughter's college applications the way he wants, and now our relationship is extremely tense. AITA here. I, 42F, have been dealing with a situation involving my 17-year-old daughter, Emily, that has put a serious strain on my marriage. I'm unsure if I'm being unreasonable or if my husband, Greg, 45M, is crossing a line. Emily is a smart, motivated student who has been preparing for college for the past few years. She has excellent grades, is involved in several extracurricular activities, and has a few leadership roles at school. For context, Greg and I have very different approaches to education and parenting. I've always prioritized a balanced approach, encouraging Emily to pursue her interests and apply to schools that fit her academically, socially, and financially. Greg, on the other hand, tends to focus almost exclusively on prestige and status, often pushing Emily toward schools that look impressive on paper rather than considering what would actually be a good fit for her. The issue began about 6 months ago when Emily started thinking about colleges. Greg immediately started compiling a list of Ivy League and top-tier universities and began making recommendations about what essays she should write and how to position herself for scholarships and admissions. He suggested specific topics for her personal statements, instructed her on how to emphasize certain accomplishments, and even drafted outlines for her application essays. I felt this was overstepping because Emily is the one who should decide what aspects of herself to highlight. I'm not saying guidance is bad, but it felt like Greg was taking control. I tried to approach the situation diplomatically. I told Greg that while I appreciate his enthusiasm and knowledge, Emily needs autonomy in her applications. I suggested that we provide advice and support, but allow her to make the final decisions on topics, schools, and essays. Greg disagreed, insisting that his approach would maximize her chances of acceptance and that it was our responsibility as parents to ensure she gets the best opportunities. The tension escalated when Greg insisted on submitting her early application to an Ivy League school without consulting me, arguing that early applications improved chances of acceptance. I reminded him that Emily was not ready and wanted more time to refine her essays. Greg accused me of being too soft and risking her future for comfort, which felt manipulative and stressful. Emily got caught in the middle, visibly anxious and frustrated because she didn't want to upset either of us. We attempted a compromise where Emily would work on essays independently while we provided feedback. However, Greg continued to draft sections himself and left comments on her documents in a way that made it feel like he was writing for her rather than guiding her. I confronted him, saying that this undermined Emily's voice and creativity. He argued that I was being overly cautious and that he knows what admissions officers want. I tried to explain that Emily's authentic voice is more important than strategic positioning, but he was adamant. The situation worsened when Greg started contacting admissions counselors and arranging unofficial visits without my knowledge, insisting that these are opportunities Emily would regret missing. He also emailed some of her teachers to encourage strong recommendation letters and copied me on the messages, which felt like he was turning me into an observer rather than a co-parent. I expressed my frustration, pointing out that decisions like these should be made together, but Greg accused me of trying to control the process and not supporting Emily. Emily has started withdrawing, spending less time talking to either of us about her applications and expressing anxiety over the constant pressure. She's asked me privately to mediate and to ensure that she has space to make her own decisions. I've tried to respect her wishes, but Greg interprets this as me being unsupportive or trying to sabotage her future. Family dynamics have become tense. Greg's sister and parents have weighed in, mostly siding with him. They say I should trust his judgment and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. My own parents support me, saying that Emily's autonomy is crucial and that it's normal for teens to want some control over their applications. Despite their support, the constant conflict is affecting all of us, and our marriage has become strained. We argue almost daily about this topic, and it has spilled into unrelated areas, creating an overall hostile environment at home. I've considered letting Greg take the lead to avoid conflict, but I fear it would undermine Emily's confidence and independence. I've also thought about formalizing boundaries, letting Emily make decisions on which schools to apply to, what essays to write, and which visits to attend, while Greg and I provide support only when requested. I suggested this to Greg multiple times, but he refuses to relinquish control, arguing that he knows what's best for her and that I'm risking everything by letting her decide. I've tried seeking advice from counselors and independent educational consultants who agree that Emily should maintain control of her applications and that parental pressure, especially conflicting parental pressure, can be harmful. Greg dismisses these recommendations as unnecessary and insists that our experience and knowledge should guide her. The ongoing tension has made Emily anxious, Greg frustrated, and me exhausted. I feel like I'm constantly policing boundaries and trying to maintain a healthy environment for her while also advocating for her independence. Despite my best efforts to compromise and mediate, Greg interprets every suggestion as interference or undermining, and this has created a constant cycle of arguments. So, AITA for refusing to let my husband handle our daughter's college applications the way he wants, insisting instead that she has autonomy in the process, even though he believes his approach maximizes her chances of success. I'm trying to protect Emily's mental health and sense of independence, but it's causing serious conflict in our household and straining my marriage. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 34F. Growing up, she was the golden child of our family, smart, talented, and always seemingly perfect in our parents' eyes. I, on the other hand, struggled with school and self-confidence issues, and while my parents were supportive, Emily always seemed to overshadow me. For the most part, we got along, but there was always an undercurrent of competitiveness and resentment. The situation came to a head when Emily got engaged last year. She's marrying her college sweetheart, Greg, 35M, who is wonderful and very kind. At first, I was genuinely happy for them, but planning for the wedding revealed just how difficult Emily could be. She has always been controlling, but I had hoped that with her fiancé's influence, she would relax a bit. I was wrong. Emily decided she wanted a destination wedding in Italy. Fine, I can handle that. She then decided she wanted a no kids, no guests outside family policy, which I also accepted, even though it meant a significant financial and emotional commitment. She asked everyone to RSVP months in advance and said that any last-minute changes would not be accommodated. I made all the arrangements, booked flights and hotels, and started saving for the big trip. Then came the first incident. Emily insisted that every family member send her a gift registry update email once we had purchased our presents, so she could keep track. I thought this was a bit obsessive, but I complied. Later, I found out she publicly shared which gifts each family member had purchased in a group chat, commenting on the cost, and sometimes implying that some gifts were inadequate. I was embarrassed and hurt when she pointed out in the chat that my gift was cute but not practical, even though I'd spent a lot of time choosing it. I decided to step back from the chat entirely after that. The next problem arose with the wedding dress. Emily had a very specific vision and wanted only family members to help her shop. I offered to accompany her, thinking I could be helpful. She humored me for a few minutes, but then started openly criticizing my opinions and comparing me to a friend who had better taste. She eventually told me I wasn't needed at all and that she would handle it with her bridesmaids. This stung because I had genuinely wanted to be part of her process, but I brushed it off and told myself it wasn't worth arguing over. Things escalated further when she started sending out pre-wedding instructions. Emily sent me a multi-page document detailing exactly what I was expected to wear, how I should behave, and even how I should position myself in photos. There were color codes, seating charts, and detailed instructions on when and where I could speak. It felt suffocating, but I tried to follow them because I didn't want to ruin her day. The breaking point came last month. Emily called me to tell me she was disappointed that I hadn't offered to pay for a private wine tasting experience for the rehearsal dinner. I had no idea this was expected, and when I asked why, she said, "It's tradition in our family. Everyone contributes. You should have known." I told her I wasn't aware of this tradition and couldn't afford to contribute. She immediately became angry and said I was being selfish and not supportive. The conversation ended with her saying, "I guess I just can't count on you like everyone else can." I was shocked and hurt. After that, I started looking back at all the interactions we had over the past year. I realized that almost every step of the wedding planning had involved her controlling or criticizing me in some way. From the registry to the dress to the instructions for behavior, I felt like I was being treated more like a servant or an object than a sister. I began to dread the idea of going to the wedding because I knew it would be emotionally exhausting and likely humiliating in front of the family and Greg's family. A week ago, I finally sent Emily a message telling her that I would not be attending the wedding. I explained that I loved her and I wanted her to be happy, but that the way she had treated me during the planning process had made me feel disrespected and unwelcome. I suggested that we could celebrate together privately after the wedding if she wanted, but that I could not participate in an event where I felt like my presence would be unwelcome. The response I got from Emily was explosive. She called me selfish, dramatic, and accused me of trying to ruin her wedding. She told me that families should put aside grievances for important events and that my refusal was immature and heartbreaking. Our parents called me, and while they tried to be neutral, they hinted that I was overreacting and that I should just suck it up for the sake of family harmony. Even some extended relatives have reached out, expressing disappointment that I would not attend. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I don't want to hurt my sister or cause family drama. On the other hand, I feel like I need to set boundaries and protect myself from being mistreated. I keep thinking about the years of being compared to Emily, the constant criticism, and now the wedding experience, and I realize I cannot put myself in that situation again. I have anxiety, and the thought of attending fills me with dread. Some friends tell me I should go and try to forgive her for the day, while others say I'm right to prioritize my mental health. I've considered that maybe I'm overreacting, but when I weigh the cumulative treatment over time, it feels like a valid decision. I also wonder if Emily will ever understand why I can't attend, or if this will permanently damage our relationship. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after everything that has happened? I feel guilty, but I also feel like I'm finally standing up for myself. I just don't know if I'm wrong in thinking that self-preservation is more important than family expectations in this case. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother's fiancée stay in my house after a fight. Even though everyone is upset with me, I, 32F, have always been close with my younger brother, Alex, 28M, but our relationship has had its ups and downs. We grew up in a small town, and for most of our lives, I was the responsible older sibling while he tended to act more impulsively. Despite our differences, I've always tried to be supportive, especially when it comes to his personal life. Alex recently got engaged to his girlfriend, Samantha, 27F. I met Samantha about 2 years ago when Alex started dating her. At first, I thought she was sweet, though a bit clingy. Over time, I began to notice some red flags, like how she often spoke over Alex in conversations, dismissed his opinions, and tried to isolate him from friends and family. I voiced my concerns once or twice, but Alex assured me she was just passionate and that I was overreacting. 2 months ago, Alex and Samantha moved in together. Initially, things seemed fine, but their dynamics started affecting family interactions. At family gatherings, Samantha would monopolize conversations and subtly undermine Alex. I tried to stay neutral, but it was obvious to everyone who was paying attention. About a month ago, I organized a weekend getaway at my place in the mountains. I invited Alex, Samantha, and a few friends. Everything went smoothly until the second day. Samantha had a meltdown over something minor. Alex had packed food she didn't like, and she began yelling at him in front of everyone. I intervened, telling her that her behavior was unacceptable. She became defensive, claiming I was being controlling and tried to start drama. Alex seemed embarrassed but didn't defend her, which was unusual. Later that evening, Samantha confronted me privately. She told me I was overstepping and that Alex deserved a fiancé who didn't have so many rules about how he should live. I calmly told her that I cared about Alex and didn't want to see him treated poorly. She responded with insults, calling me judgmental and selfish. I decided to end the conversation and left. The next day, Samantha refused to participate in the planned hiking trip. She sulked in the cabin, and Alex seemed torn between calming her down and enjoying the weekend. By the end of the trip, tensions had escalated so much that Samantha refused to stay in the cabin for the last night, claiming she needed space and wanted to stay somewhere else. I offered to let her stay in my guest room, thinking it might help de-escalate the situation. That's when things got heated. As soon as she stepped into my house, she began criticizing how I run my home, complaining about the decor, the temperature, and even the way I organize the kitchen. I asked her to tone it down, but she continued. I realized that letting her stay would only prolong the tension and possibly cause more arguments. I told her she couldn't stay and that she needed to make other arrangements. She reacted by throwing a tantrum in my living room, yelling that I was trying to ruin their relationship and that I was never on anyone's side but my own. Alex tried to mediate, but I stayed firm. Samantha ended up leaving to stay at a nearby hotel. The following day, Alex called me, furious. He said I had embarrassed Samantha and that I was being unreasonable. He reminded me that I was supposed to be family and that family helps each other. Our parents also got involved. They called me, saying that I had overreacted and that I should have been more accommodating. They felt I had escalated a minor conflict by refusing her the guest room. I tried explaining that her behavior was aggressive and disrespectful and that I was worried about the negative impact on the weekend. My parents didn't see it that way. They think I should have bitten my tongue and kept the peace. A few days later, our extended family began taking sides on social media. Some agreed with me, saying that Samantha was being difficult and that I was justified. Others criticized me, saying I had no right to refuse a guest, especially when my brother's relationship was involved. Alex has been distant ever since and has barely responded to my messages. Samantha has blocked me, but I occasionally see posts implying that I'm the villain in their love story. I'm still firm in my decision because I feel it would have been unreasonable to let someone stay in my home while being openly hostile and disrespectful. I also worry that if I had allowed her to stay, the conflict would have escalated further, possibly damaging my home and mental well-being. I do miss my brother and regret that our relationship is strained, but I don't regret standing up for boundaries. Now, I'm torn because my family is pressuring me to apologize, while others say I was right to enforce limits. I'm trying to find a balance between maintaining boundaries and preserving family relationships, but I feel stuck. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée stay in my house after she was disrespectful, even though it upset my brother and family. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my house indefinitely after she helped renovate it, even though she claims she's entitled to it. AITA here. I, 39F, have been in a tense and ongoing conflict with my sister, Laura, 36F, and it has escalated to the point that I'm questioning if I'm actually in the wrong. This situation involves a lot of family dynamics, financial contributions, and personal boundaries. A little background. About 2 years ago, I bought a house that was in decent condition but needed some serious renovations. It had good potential, and I saw it as my forever home. Laura, who is skilled in construction and interior design, offered to help me renovate it. At first, I thought it was a generous and exciting opportunity to work together. She helped extensively with structural changes, flooring, painting, and furniture selection. She also contributed some of her own money for materials and spent countless weekends and evenings at the house, often staying overnight. I was genuinely grateful for her help and considered it a bonding experience. Once the renovation was completed, the house looked amazing, and I felt proud of what we accomplished together. That's when the tension started. Laura began making comments about moving in, suggesting that since she had invested so much time, energy, and money into the renovation, she had some kind of claim to live in the house permanently. I told her that while I valued her help, my home is my home, and I had no intention of giving up my living space. She argued that she had essentially built this house with me and that it wouldn't have been possible without her. I tried to reason with her. I offered compromises like occasional weekend stays or contributing to household chores and expenses if she visited, but she kept insisting on living there full-time. I explained that having her in the house permanently would disrupt my routine, reduce my privacy, and create tension, but she accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. She said I was disregarding her contributions and implied that family loyalty meant I should accommodate her wishes. The situation escalated when she started talking to our parents and other family members about the issue. She framed it as me refusing to acknowledge her work and being ungrateful for her efforts. Suddenly, the narrative shifted, and I was cast as the villain for not allowing my sister to move into my home. Our parents have been trying to mediate, but they're clearly frustrated with me. They keep saying that I should consider her sacrifices and be fair because she worked hard on the renovations, even though they acknowledge that the house legally belongs to me. Laura has also been showing up unannounced under the guise of checking on the house or fixing small things and criticizing minor details like paint finishes, furniture placement, or the organization of rooms. She says these comments are meant to be helpful, but it feels like she's asserting ownership in subtle ways. I've tried to set boundaries, telling her that I appreciate her input, but that final decisions are mine, yet she brushes them off, claiming I'm being controlling. The tension has affected my mental health and my daily life. Every time I enter a room she has been in, I feel like my personal space is being violated. Even small interactions, like her offering unsolicited advice on meals or decor, are now stressful. I've had to hide certain projects or purchases because I know she will critique them. I've also noticed that she's begun making passive-aggressive comments to other family members, framing me as ungrateful and difficult. I attempted a formal approach by suggesting a written agreement or boundaries for her visits, such as a set number of days per month she could stay and contributing to groceries or utilities. Laura refused, saying that anything less than full-time residency is insulting and that she shouldn't have to negotiate for space she believes she deserves. She also said that if I continue to deny her request, It will damage our relationship permanently. Greg, my husband, has been supportive of my position, but even he is frustrated by the constant family drama. He agrees that Laura is overstepping, but he also worries that continuing conflict will strain relationships with parents and other siblings. I've tried to involve a family mediator, but Laura refuses, claiming that I am manipulating the situation and hiding the truth about her contributions. The situation has now become a major source of stress. Family gatherings are awkward. My sister refuses to respect boundaries, and I constantly feel guilty because Laura portrays herself as the wrong party. I have tried multiple times to compromise and acknowledge her contributions while still maintaining my own rights to privacy and control over my home, but she interprets any boundary as an attack. I've thought about long-term solutions, like offering her financial compensation for her contributions or suggesting she purchase her own property, but she refuses both. She insists that moving in permanently is her right because she helped renovate the house and has a claim to it. Meanwhile, our parents and other family members continue to pressure me to allow her to stay, framing it as a moral obligation rather than a matter of legal ownership or personal boundaries. I feel caught between protecting my home and autonomy and trying to maintain family relationships. I love my sister and don't want to ruin our bond, but I also feel that my boundaries and mental well-being should matter. Despite my attempts to explain, negotiate, and offer compromises, Laura continues to insist that she is entitled to permanent residency in my home, and my family sides with her on moral grounds rather than practicality or legality. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house permanently after she helped renovate it, even though it has caused tension with her and other family members. I feel like I am protecting my home and personal boundaries, but my family portrays me as selfish and ungrateful, and I'm struggling to know if I'm really in the wrong here. AITA for refusing to attend my mother's wedding because of how she treated me during the planning process. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my mother, Linda, 55F. Growing up, she was loving in some ways, but extremely controlling and critical. She often compared me to my younger brother, Ethan, 25M, and criticized my choices from school to career to friendships. I tried to maintain a respectful distance as an adult, focusing on my job and building my independence. However, a situation with her recent engagement has made our relationship even more strained. About 6 months ago, my mother announced she was engaged to Derek, 57M, a man I had met only a few times at family events. She was excited and asked me to help with wedding planning. I agreed initially, thinking it would be a way to support her. From the start, however, things were stressful. Linda insisted that I attend every planning meeting, even though I live in a different city and have a demanding job. She wanted me to handle researching venues, contacting caterers, and even picking decorations, all while constantly telling me I wasn't doing it correctly. The first major conflict came when we discussed the guest list. Linda wanted to invite dozens of her coworkers, distant relatives I had never met, and several family friends, which would have turned the wedding into a massive event she insisted was appropriate for her status. I suggested a smaller, more intimate ceremony, emphasizing practicality and cost. She became angry and said I was disrespecting her wishes and trying to sabotage the wedding. I reminded her that I was just offering suggestions and that she could make the final decision, but she insisted I needed to take her side or I was being unhelpful. Another issue was the catering. Linda wanted a very expensive, formal menu, and she demanded that I contact multiple caterers to compare prices. I did as she asked, but she criticized every recommendation, calling me incompetent and careless. She also micromanaged the decorations, sending me lists of flowers she wanted and demanding I oversee the entire setup. When I tried to set boundaries and explain that I could not do every task, she accused me of being lazy and said I was ungrateful for all she had done for me over the years. The tension escalated when she started making personal comments. She criticized my career choices, my apartment, and even my social life, framing them as reasons why I couldn't contribute properly to the wedding planning. Derek, her fiancé, rarely intervened and when he did, he agreed with her, saying I should just do as Linda asks. I felt unsupported and overwhelmed. I began avoiding calls and messages from her, only responding when absolutely necessary. About 2 months before the wedding, she sent me a message saying that if I didn't attend every planning meeting and do exactly as she said, she would assume I don't care about her happiness, and that it would be on me if the wedding isn't perfect. I told her that I would support her emotionally, but I could not handle full responsibility for planning, and I would not compromise my job and mental health. She became furious and stopped speaking to me for several days. The final straw was when she scheduled a dress fitting and asked me to pay for my own travel and accommodations to attend. When I expressed that I couldn't afford it at the moment, she sent me a long message accusing me of being selfish and claiming that I was choosing my life over family. She also told my brother that I was difficult and uncooperative, which put him in an awkward position. I tried explaining my perspective to him privately, and he agreed I was justified, but he didn't want to get involved publicly. After that, I made a decision. I informed my mother that I could not attend the wedding, citing the stress, emotional manipulation, and the constant criticism I had endured during planning. I offered to celebrate with her privately after the wedding, perhaps over dinner or a small family gathering, but she refused. Since then, she has sent multiple messages expressing disappointment, saying that I was ruining her happiness and that she expected me to put her needs first. She has also hinted that she may limit contact in the future because I refuse to prioritize family. My father and stepfather have weighed in. My father said he understood my decision, noting that the wedding planning sounded overwhelming and that I had valid reasons to decline. My stepfather, who has seen the situation firsthand, said that my mother was being controlling and manipulative and that standing my ground was healthy. Despite their support, I feel a mix of relief and guilt. Relief because I know I would have been miserable, and guilt because I keep thinking about how hurt my mother is. Friends and colleagues have told me I did the right thing, emphasizing the importance of boundaries and self-care. I've reflected on the situation and realized that attending would likely have caused more harm than good, given the constant criticism and pressure. Yet, I worry that refusing may permanently damage our relationship, even though it feels necessary for my own well-being. AITA for refusing to attend my mother's wedding because of the way she treated me during the planning process and the emotional strain it caused me. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning. AITA here. I'm 32, married, and have a younger sister, 28. Growing up, we were pretty close, but our relationship has always been slightly competitive. She's always been more socially outgoing and tends to be the center of attention, while I'm more reserved and thoughtful. Despite this, I genuinely like my sister and have always tried to support her in big life events. The issue started when she got engaged last year. She announced her engagement to her fiancé, and shortly after, she started planning the wedding. I was excited for her and offered to help with whatever she needed, whether it was addressing invitations, organizing events, or even just helping pick out decor ideas. I was ignored. Not entirely. She would answer my texts politely, but never involved me in any of the actual planning. When I asked if I could help, she would say things like, "Oh, don't worry, I got it under control," or "We're just figuring some things out with the planner, I'll let you know." I didn't think too much of it at first, because I assumed she was just busy. A few months in, I found out from mutual friends that she had actually made a lot of decisions regarding the wedding without even consulting me. She even asked her best friend, who lives across the country, to help plan key aspects like the floral arrangements, seating chart, and ceremony music. I felt hurt, but I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe she wanted it to be a smaller, more intimate planning group. The tipping point came when she asked me to be a bridesmaid. Normally, I would have been honored, but the way she asked felt like an afterthought. She sent a group text to her bridesmaids that included me, saying, "We have the final dress fittings next week. Can everyone make it? Also, don't forget the bachelorette party plans. Details to follow." She never reached out to me individually or even asked if I could commit to her bachelorette plans. It felt impersonal, almost like she was checking a box. When I tried to bring it up casually, saying, "Hey, I feel like I haven't been very involved in the planning. Is there a way I can help more?" She responded with, Don't worry about it. We just need everyone to show up and have fun. I started to feel invisible. I thought maybe she didn't value my input or didn't want me involved. So I asked her fiancé privately if there was a reason I was being left out. He was surprised and said he didn't know anything about it and that my sister hadn't mentioned excluding anyone intentionally. But when I tried to talk to my sister again, she shrugged it off and said, "I just like handling things with the planner and my friends. It's easier that way." The final straw was when she sent out her wedding invitations. All my close friends were invited, but I noticed a pattern in how she worded mine. It didn't include any personal note or acknowledgement, while other bridesmaids received messages like "can't wait to celebrate with you" or "so excited you're part of this special day." My invite just said, "Please join us for the wedding of sister and fiancé." It felt cold and generic. I confronted her about it, trying to explain that I felt excluded and hurt. She got defensive, saying that I was overreacting and that she didn't mean to make me feel bad. She said, "I've planned everything with the people I trust, and it's nothing personal." I pointed out that I was her sister and that family should be included in such an important moment. Not just friends, but she said, "I love you, but this is my wedding, and I need it to be how I envision it. You don't need to control everything." At this point, I felt extremely frustrated and unappreciated. After thinking it through for several weeks, I decided to tell her that I would not attend the wedding unless I was treated as an actual part of it. I offered to come if we could have a proper conversation, and she could explain why I was being excluded and possibly find a way to include me in some planning aspects at least. She reacted very negatively, saying I was being dramatic and selfish, that this was my punishment for not being fun enough or too sensitive. She also threatened to uninvite me entirely if I kept pushing. I stood my ground and told her that attending a wedding where I felt deliberately excluded was emotionally painful, and I didn't want to participate under those circumstances. The last time we spoke, she said I was overreacting and that our relationship was now strained because of my attitude. Our parents and some mutual friends have reached out to mediate. They think I'm being too rigid and that I should just attend for the sake of family harmony. Some of my friends say I'm justified in feeling hurt and that my sister's behavior is dismissive and unkind. I don't want to ruin her day or cause a scene, but I also don't want to feel invisible in a celebration that is supposed to be meaningful to family. I've considered attending, but keeping a low profile, but I'm worried that will make me resentful and affect our relationship further. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after being excluded from the planning and treated as an afterthought, even though her family and friends are urging me to just get over it for the sake of harmony. AITA for refusing to lend my friend a large sum of money to start a business, even though she helped me through a tough time, and now she's angry at me. AITA here. I, 31F, have been dealing with a situation involving my friend, Jessica, 32F, that's put our friendship under serious strain, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong or if she's being unreasonable. This has been going on for several months, and it has started affecting my mood, social life, and even my relationships with other friends who are aware of the conflict. Jessica and I have been close for about 10 years. She was there for me when I went through a messy breakup and helped me emotionally and practically when I was struggling financially after changing jobs. I have always considered her a dependable, caring friend, and I've tried to reciprocate whenever she needed support, whether it was helping move apartments, giving advice, or occasionally lending small amounts of money that I could afford. About 6 months ago, Jessica came to me with an idea to start her own boutique coffee shop. She had been working in hospitality for years and said she had a solid plan, a location in mind, and even preliminary designs for the interior. Her issue was that she didn't have enough capital to cover the initial costs, which she estimated at around $35,000. She asked me if I would be willing to lend her the money to get started, assuring me that she would pay it back within a year once the business was running. I was taken aback. While I admire Jessica's ambition and want to support her, $35,000 is a huge amount of money for me. It represents more than a year of my savings, and lending it would put me at serious financial risk. I explained this to her carefully, saying that I couldn't lend her that much because it could jeopardize my own financial stability, but I offered alternative forms of support, like helping her create a detailed business plan, researching grants or small business loans, or helping with marketing ideas. Jessica did not take this well. She argued that since I had been there for her during past crises, I owed her this support and that helping her start her business was a way of paying it forward. She said that a loan from me would show confidence in her abilities and that it would be safer and faster than trying to get outside funding. I reiterated that my decision had nothing to do with lack of trust or friendship, but she accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. Things escalated over the next few weeks. Jessica began sending subtle messages about my priorities in our group chat, implying that some friends are willing to help while others are only concerned about money. Mutual friends started asking me why I hadn't contributed, and I tried to explain that $35,000 was not something I could afford to lend. Jessica countered that there are always ways to make sacrifices for friends, framing my caution as a moral failing rather than a practical decision. I even suggested that I could contribute a smaller, manageable amount, say $2,000, to help with equipment or supplies, but Jessica said that anything less than the full sum would not make a meaningful impact and that it would be insulting to her plans. She implied that if I truly valued our friendship, I would find a way to help her fully, which made me feel guilty and pressured. The situation has had other consequences as well. Our interactions are tense. I dread calls and messages because I anticipate guilt tripping or judgment. Mutual friends have started taking sides, some subtly siding with Jessica because they admire her initiative, while others privately tell me I'm reasonable but advise staying quiet to avoid drama. I feel isolated and try and maintain boundaries while also preserving our friendship. I've tried to compromise in other ways. I've spent hours helping her draft a business plan, research lenders and grants, and even offered to help decorate her shop once she secures funding. I've also suggested crowdfunding as an option. Despite all of this, she remains frustrated and angry, claiming that my refusal to lend the full amount demonstrates that I don't truly care about her dreams. She has even said that our friendship might change permanently because of this. I worry about the future. I value Jessica as a friend and don't want to lose our relationship, but I also cannot compromise my financial security. I've considered lending her part of the money if I liquidated some investments, but I am afraid that even partial lending could cause tension or be seen as insufficient. I've also considered taking a firm stance and making it clear that I will support her in non-financial ways but cannot loan her the money, but I fear this might end our friendship entirely. My perspective is that friendships should involve mutual respect and understanding of each other's limits. I feel like I've been clear about my boundaries, offered alternative support, and try to help in ways that are safe for me. Jessica, however, interprets anything less than full financial backing as betrayal or a lack of commitment to our friendship. So, AITA for refusing to lend my friend $35,000 to start her business, even though she helped me during tough times and insists I should support her financially. I feel like I am acting responsibly and trying to help in other meaningful ways, but she sees my refusal as selfish, and it has caused serious strain on our friendship. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.